everyone, welcome back. Appreciate you tuning in this week. Back to Ant Ministries, A Year in the Red, a study of the parables of Jesus. Appreciate you guys tuning in each week to sort of see what our opinions are, what our thoughts are on these parables, and appreciate you guys some input as far as commenting on our Facebook page, or you can email us, let us know. So I don't waste too much time. Let's go ahead and go right into the parable this week. It is found in Luke chapter 12. It's the parable of the expectant servant, not the expecting servant, like no one's having a baby, but it's the expectant servant. And so be sure, and if you want to read along, you want to see what we were talking about, but I'll go ahead and read it to you. Again, it's found in Luke chapter 12, verse 35 through 40. I'll go ahead and read. It said, Let your waist be girded and your lamps burning, and you yourself like men who wait for their master, when he will return from a wedding, that when he comes and knocks, they may open to him immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the master, when he comes, will find watching. Assuredly, I say to you, that he will gird himself and have them sit down to eat, and he will come and serve them. And if he should come in the second watch, or come in the third watch, and find them so, blessed are those servants. But know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming in an hour that you do not know. Jesus in this parable starts talking a little bit about the return of man, the return of Jesus. And so he starts talking about something a little bit in that area. He starts talking about how servants should be found girded and let their lamps burning. If you can imagine, what he was really saying in today's language is this: make sure that your shoes are on, make sure your shoes are tied, and make sure that the lights are turned on. If you can imagine someone showing up to your house ready for you to take you somewhere, and whenever they get there you say, hold on just a second, let me put my shoes on. That means they really weren't ready. But if you can imagine going there and actually to pick someone up, and they're sitting on the porch and they're waiting for you, and all of a sudden as you drive up in your car, you know your friends are there, and all you have to do is stop, get in the car, and then you're gone. Jesus is pretty much saying the same thing. He's saying, listen, be ready whenever someone comes there to pick you up. Then he throws this whole weird thing about the master going off to a wedding. If you can imagine, what happens is wedding feasts in those days were not just some, hey, let's go to a little afternoon party at someone's house. The wedding feast in those days sometimes took up to 7 days. Depending on how close you were to the family, you could be there the whole 7 days, could go a little longer. I mean, we hear stories in the Old Testament where Samson had a wedding day that was lasted for, a wedding festival that lasted for a month. So if you can imagine, these wedding feasts took a long time. And so whenever the master of the house would actually leave to go to a wedding feast, no one would actually know when that master is coming back. And Jesus is saying, listen, as the master leaves the house, sometimes, those servants would kick back and say, all right, we don't have to do anything until the master comes back. But Jesus is saying, look, as you guys are waiting, as we start talking about the coming of the second coming, the coming of the Son of Man, you need to understand, you need to be ready at all times. And so Jesus talks about this as the wedding feast, because whenever the master comes back from that wedding feast, what's going to happen is, are the servants, are they just laying around not doing anything, the house all messed up, or are they ready the entire time to be serving the master? I'm just going to be honest with you guys about this parable and start talking about the second coming and the coming of the Son of Man. I get into a weird thing with that, because there's a lot of people out there, we're living in end times and all these end things, and Jesus is going to come back any day now, and because all these things are falling. And I don't want to make it sound bad, I don't want to make it trivial, because at the end of the times is not right now. But what I will say is this: I don't know that it matters, because I know throughout history, the thousands of years that's taken place from the time Jesus was here until Jesus walked the face of the earth, until the time he does come back, there's going to be plenty of people that's saying, hey, we're living in the end times right now, and Jesus is going to come back in any day. And I don't know that Jesus is saying, listen, be prepared, walk around with your eyes looking up at the sky all the time, but we are to be doing his work. There's not a time for us to sit back and say, I'll get to it later. And Jesus goes into a weird thing in this parable whenever he starts talking about a thief. What man who knows that this house is going to be broken into is going to wait for the thief? If you had a house, or if you had your locker at school or something, and you knew someone was going to break into it, it, wouldn't you sit, and you knew the exact time, wouldn't you be sitting there waiting just for that case, right then for them to show up? Well, Jesus is saying, listen, what man wouldn't do that? But we as servants of God, for everybody, disciples of Christ, everybody need to understand that the Son of Man is coming back. He can come back at any time. And what takes place in this parable is Jesus saying, listen, we need to be prepared all the time. Technically, we should have our lights on our porch, and we should be sitting on our porch with our shoes tied, ready to go whenever Jesus shows up. What does that look like? I don't know. For me, I know people that I've talked to about, hey man, what's this deal about you accepting Christ? I know you've talked about it, you know about Jesus and everything. You know, I got plenty of time to do that. I'm young. I got things going on in my life. I don't have time to do that right now. I'm going to do that later. And Jesus is saying, listen, that's really not the case. We're to do it just like Jesus was going to come back any moment. I mean, can you imagine that? Can you imagine you right now knowing that next Thursday, Jesus would be coming back at 2 o'clock? What would you do differently between now and next Thursday? Or what would you do on that Thursday knowing Jesus was coming back at 2 o'clock? What would you do at 1:30 in the afternoon knowing that Jesus was coming back at 2? I think that's really what Jesus is trying to say. You're supposed to live your life all the time like that. Keep your affairs in order right now, because Jesus literally could come back any moment. He tells us that. At the end of that verse, it says, in verse 40, it says this, therefore you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you do not expect. Hey, that's pretty simple. In our life, in my life, in your life, this is what Jesus is telling us. These are the words from Jesus. This is what He says. Hey, listen, be ready. Because this, I'll tell you, the Son of Man is coming back at a time that none of us expect. I know there's things I've done in my life that I've thought to myself, you know, no one's going to find out. I can always go back and sort of ask forgiveness later. The bottom line is we're to be ready at all times because Jesus is coming back. He tells us to. Hey, again, I appreciate you guys tuning in this week. If y'all have any questions or if you have any thoughts, your take on that verse, on those verses, Luke chapter 12, verse 35 through 40, email us, post it on our Facebook. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week.